I stood in my small antique shop, carefully polishing a Victorian-era silver tea set. Through the window, I could see the expensive cars rolling up to Morton's Steakhouse across the street, sleek BMWs and Mercedes that probably cost more than my entire inventory. My brother Marcus would be in one of those cars, arriving for our monthly family dinner in his usual style. The silver tea set gleamed under the soft lights, its intricate engravings telling stories of a bygone era. Most people would see it as just another old piece of kitchenware, worth maybe a few $100s. But I knew better. This particular set had once belonged to a British duchess, and its true value was closer to $50,000. That was my secret, knowing the true value of things, and more importantly, knowing when to keep that knowledge to myself. I'm Emily Harrison, though in certain exclusive circles I'm known as E. Cross, one of the most influential private collectors and antiquities dealers in the country. But to my family, I'm just their disappointing youngest daughter who runs a quaint little junk shop in downtown Boston. The bell above the door chimed as my assistant Kate walked in. "The Henderson estate papers just came through," she said, holding up a thick envelope. "You were right about the provenance." I smiled, thinking of the collection I'd acquired last week for a fraction of its true worth. And the transfer. Complete. The shell company now owns 51% of Harrison Global's shares. Your brother has no idea. I nodded, checking my watch. Time to close up and head to dinner. Make sure everything's ready for tomorrow's board meeting. I want all the documentation in order when Marcus realizes who really owns his company. As I locked up the shop, I thought about how it all started. 10 years ago, I was fresh out of college with an art history degree and a passion for antiques. My family had other plans. Marcus, the golden child with his MBA, was taking over the family company. My parents wanted me to join him there, working under his supervision in some meaningless administrative role. Instead, I used my small inheritance from Grandma, a mere $100,000 compared to the millions Marcus received, to open my antique shop. My family was horrified. "A shop?" my mother had exclaimed. "Like a common retailer?" But Grandma had known what she was doing. She taught me everything about antiques, about recognizing value where others saw only age. More importantly, she taught me about patience. The best revenge, she used to say, is the one no one sees coming. Now walking into Morton's in my simple dress, vintage Chanel, though my family would never recognize that, I prepared myself for another evening of thinly veiled condescension. They were already seated at our usual table, Marcus in his custom suit, his wife Diana dripping in new money jewelry, my parents beaming with pride at their successful son. My sister-in-law's latest diamond bracelet probably cost more than what they thought I made in a year. "Emily, darling," my mother air-kissed my cheek. "We were just discussing Marcus's latest acquisition. Harrison Global is expanding again." I slid into my seat, accepting the house wine while they all had expensive champagne. "Oh, do tell." Marcus puffed up like a peacock. "We're acquiring Sterling Industries. It's a huge deal, will put us in the Fortune 500. Of course, he smirked in my direction. "I wouldn't expect you to understand the complexities of corporate mergers. How's the little shop doing?" If he only knew that I'd been orchestrating his company's moves for months through a complex web of shell companies and private equity firms. That Sterling Industries acquisition, I'd arranged it knowing it would stretch Harrison Global's resources to the breaking point. "Oh, I shrugged, still selling old things to people who appreciate them." Deanna laughed, the sound like tinkling glass. "It must be so quaint. I passed by your shop the other day. It looked rather empty." Of course it looked empty. My real inventory, worth millions, was stored in a secure warehouse outside the city. The shop was just a front, a careful cultivation of the image my family had of me. "Business is steady," I said mildly, taking a sip of wine. "Steady?" Marcus scoffed. "Emily, you need to think bigger." In fact, he leaned forward, adopting what I called his businessman voice. "I've been thinking. The building your shop is in, it's in a prime location. Harrison Global could use it for our new downtown office." "Really?" I kept my voice neutral, even as I suppressed a smile. "The building he was talking about, I owned it, along with half the block. I could make you a generous offer," he continued. "Way more than you're making now. Maybe even find you a position at the company. Something appropriate to your skills." Our father nodded approvingly. "That's very generous of you, Marcus." "Emily." You should consider it. It's time you started thinking about your future. If they only knew that my future included owning controlling interest in Harrison Global through a series of careful acquisitions. Tomorrow's board meeting would reveal that E. Cross, the mysterious collector they'd been competing with for various properties, was now their majority shareholder. I'll think about it, I said, knowing how much that non-commitment would irritate Marcus. He was used to people jumping at his offers. Still playing with your little treasures, he sighed. Sometimes I wonder what Grandma was thinking, leaving you that money. She must have known you'd waste it on this hobby. I thought about the empire I built from that waste, the international network of collectors, the private auctions, the multimillion-dollar deals conducted in whispers and sealed with handshakes, all while maintaining the appearance of a simple antique shop owner. Grandma understood more than you think, I replied quietly. Please, Marcus waved his hand dismissively. She was sentimental. But this is business, Emily. Real business. Speaking of which, he turned to our parents. Wait until you hear about tomorrow's board meeting. We're announcing the Sterling acquisition, and there's this mysterious major shareholder who's been buying up stock. I listened as he bragged about his plans, about how he convinced this unknown investor to support his vision for the company. He had no idea that I'd spent years positioning myself for this moment, using my knowledge of antiques and art to build a fortune that dwarfed Harrison Global's holdings. The rest of dinner passed in its usual way, Marcus dominating the conversation with tales of his business prowess, Diana showing off her latest luxury purchases, our parents hanging on their every word while occasionally shooting me concerned looks. As we were finishing dessert, Marcus couldn't resist one final dig. Emily, it's not too late to join the real world. That shop of yours. It's cute, but it's not a real business. You're what, 32 now? Time to grow up. I dabbed my lips with a napkin, thinking about the documents waiting in my office. Actually, Marcus, I've been meaning to ask you something. Have you ever heard of E. Cross? He froze, fork halfway to his mouth. The collector? Of course. They've been grabbing up properties all over the city. Very mysterious. Some say they're worth billions. Why? Just curious. I heard they've been buying Harrison Global stock. Marcus's face darkened. Where did you hear that? That's confidential information. I stood up, gathering my vintage Hermes bag, another piece my family assumed was a cheap knockoff. Oh, you know how people talk in antique shops. All sorts of interesting things pass through. This is serious business, Emily, he snapped. Not some gossip for your little shop. Tomorrow's board meeting. Everything has to go perfectly. I smiled, thinking of the morning to come. I'm sure it will be very interesting. As I walked out of Morton's, I heard Deanna's carrying whisper. I don't know why we still invite her. It's embarrassing having a shopkeeper in the family. In my car, a deliberately modest Volvo that concealed its armored exterior, I called Kate. Is everything ready for tomorrow? Yes, Ms. Harrison. The lawyers have prepared all the documents. The board members have been quietly informed of the change in ownership. And your brother, well, he has no idea what's coming. I drove home to my penthouse apartment, one of many properties I owned through various shell companies, and poured myself a glass of champagne. The same vintage Marcus had been drinking, though mine was from a much better year. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow my brother would learn that his little sister, with her little shop, had outmaneuvered him at every turn. Tomorrow, he'd discover that the mysterious E.H. Cross, the collector whose signature he desperately needed for his Sterling Industries deal, was the same person he'd been mocking over dinner. I walked to my private vault and entered the code. Inside, among other treasures, sat Grandma's last gift to me, a simple silver locket with a note that read, "The true value of things isn't always visible to those who only see the surface." How right she had been. The next morning, I arrived at Harrison Global's headquarters early, not in my usual vintage shop attire, but in a custom-made Valentino suit that cost more than Marcus's car. Kate met me in an underground parking garage, holding a leather portfolio. The board members are already gathering, she said as we walked to the private elevator. Your brother is in his office, practicing his presentation. He still thinks this meeting is about his Sterling Industries acquisition. I smiled, thinking of the carefully orchestrated revelations to come. And the documentation. All here, including proof of every Harrison Global share purchased through your various holdings over the past 5 years. The boardroom was impressive, all mahogany and glass with views of the Boston skyline. Board members sat around the massive table, their expressions carefully neutral. They'd been informed of the true ownership situation the night before, sworn to secrecy until this moment. Marcus burst in, his confidence filling the room. "Good morning, everyone. Today's a historic day for Harrison Global." He stopped short when he saw me. "Emily? What are you doing here? This is a private board meeting." "Actually," I said calmly, taking the seat at the head of the table, "I'm exactly where I need to be." He laughed, though I caught the nervous edge in it. "Look, I know your family, but you can't just walk in here. This is a serious business matter." "Oh, I'm quite serious." I nodded to Kate, who began distributing folders to the board members. "Perhaps we should begin with a review of Harrison Global's current ownership structure." Marcus grabbed one of the folders, his face turning pale as he read. This can't be right. Ed Cross owns 51% of our shares. Through a network of shell companies and private holdings, his head snapped up. "How did you get this information?" "The same way I acquired those shares," I said, standing up. "Very carefully, over a very long time." "I don't understand," he stammered. "What do you have to do with E. Cross?" "E. Cross is Emily Harrison Cross," one of the board members explained gently. "Your sister." The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus collapsed into a chair, the folder sliding from his trembling hands. "No, that's impossible. You run an antique shop. You're not, you can't be the mysterious collector who's been buying up prime real estate across the city, the private investor whose signature you need for the Sterling Industries deal, the majority shareholder of Harrison Global." I smiled. "I'm all of those things, Marcus." "But how? Remember Grandma's inheritance? The one you said I wasted on my little hobby? Turns out knowing the true value of things, whether they're antiques or companies, is quite profitable." The door burst open again as our parents rushed in, clearly summoned by Marcus's desperate texts. "What's going on?" our father demanded. "Marcus says something about Emily and H. Cross. Your daughter," the board chairman announced, "has just been confirmed as the majority shareholder of Harrison Global. All votes involving the Sterling Industries acquisition will require her approval." My mother sank into the nearest chair. "Emily? Our Emily?" I opened my laptop, projecting my company's true holdings onto the wall screen. My little antique shop was just the public face of a much larger operation. While you were all busy mocking my career choice, I built an international investment empire. Harrison Global is just my latest acquisition. Marcus found his voice, anger replacing shock. "You deceived us. All those family dinners, playing the part of the struggling shopkeeper. Like you played the part of the caring brother?" I countered, making jokes about my career, offering to save me from my choices, never once considering that I might be capable of more than you assumed. "We were trying to help you," my father protested. "No, you were trying to force me into a box that fit your expectations. But Grandma saw something different in me. She taught me that true value isn't always obvious in antiques or in people." I turned to Marcus. "The Sterling Industries deal, it's a good acquisition, but your terms are wrong. You're overpaying by about 30%, and the leadership structure you've proposed is unsustainable." He stared at me, years of certainty crumbling. "You've been watching us this whole time, planning this." I learned patience from my antiques. Some pieces need time to reveal their true worth. I sat back down at the head of the table. "Now shall we discuss the real future of Harrison Global?" The next few hours were a blur of presentations, negotiations, and restructuring plans. I laid out my vision for the company, one that combined Marcus's market knowledge with my broader investment expertise. By the end, even he had to admit my strategy was sound. As the board members filed out, my parents lingered. My mother's eyes were wet with tears, of shame or pride, I wasn't sure. "Why didn't you tell us?" she asked softly. "Would you have believed me, or would you have tried to take control, just like you did with every other aspect of my life?" My father stepped forward. "We thought we knew what was best for you." "No," I corrected him. "You thought you knew who I was. You never bothered to look deeper." Kate appeared at the door. "Ms. Cross, the Sterling Industries CEO is on the line." Marcus started. "You're taking my deal?" "No," I smiled. "I'm offering you the chance to work with me on a better one. As equals. If you can handle having your little sister as your boss." He laughed, a genuine sound I hadn't heard in years. I'm starting to think there was never anything little about you, Emily. Over the next few months, Harrison Global transformed. Marcus and I developed a surprising working relationship, his aggressive market strategies balanced by my more measured long-term approach. Our parents had to adjust to a new family dynamic, one where their daughter wasn't just the quirky antique dealer but a powerful business leader. My shop? I kept it open. It remained my sanctuary, a place where I could still hunt for hidden treasures and remember where it all began. Sometimes I'd catch Marcus stopping by during lunch, finally taking the time to really look at the pieces I collected, asking questions about their history and value. One evening, as I was closing up, he arrived with a familiar silver tea set in his hands. "Found this in the attic," he said. "Thought you might want to look at it. Probably just old junk, but—" I smiled, recognizing Grandma's favorite piece. "Actually, brother dear, let me tell you about the true value of things. Because sometimes the most valuable lessons come from learning to look past the surface, to see the worth in what others dismiss. My antique shop had taught me that. And now, finally, it had taught my family too." As I locked up that night, I touched Grandma's locket, still hanging around my neck. "You were right," I whispered. "The best revenge isn't just success. It's success on your own terms. And sometimes, if you're patient enough, it comes with the added bonus of teaching those who doubted you the true meaning of value."